Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into some really foundational rules to help you elevate your Quran recitation. We're going to break down a super practical lesson, looking at key verses from Surah Al-Baqarah to give you some steps you can actually use right away. All right, let's get into it. So, before we jump into all the technical stuff, pronunciation and how to move your tongue, let's start with a really crucial piece of advice. Honestly, it's a total game changer, and it builds the foundation for how you memorize. And the crazy part? It has absolutely nothing to do with your voice.
So the very first step, and you could argue it's the most important one, is all about consistency. It's about what you see and how your brain actually processes that visual information. The key here is to commit to one single copy of the Quran, your Musaf.
The teacher in our source material really emphasizes this point. Think about it like this. Every single time you read, your mind is basically taking a photograph of the page. So when you try to recall a verse, you're not just remembering the words, you're remembering where they were on that page. So this is so crucial. That consistent visual anchor is incredibly powerful. When you use the same mushaf every single time, you're essentially building a strong mental map. This one simple discipline cuts down on so much confusion and makes pulling those verses from memory way easier. All right, now that we've got that visual foundation locked in, let's get into the actual mechanics of pronunciation. We're going to start with a specific group of letters that, well, they need a little extra attention to get them just right.
Okay, so these are known as the lisping letters. Now, that doesn't mean you actually lisp. It's just that the sound is made by letting the very tip of your tongue gently touch the edge of your top front teeth. This is so fundamental for getting the articulation right. Let's look at some examples.
You know what's cool about this? You can actually feel the difference. Go on, try saying them right now. Methaluhum alatti. You should feel your tongue making that slight contact. That's the tiny movement that separates these letters from sounds like sa or za.
This slide is just a perfect illustration of another key idea, light versus heavy letters. The light letter ta is pronounced almost with a smile. You keep the sound thin, ta. But the heavy letter, tha, that one fills your whole mouth with a much deeper sound, tha. In the word tattaqun, they're both light. A super common mistake is to say tattaqun.
Okay, let's move on to stretching or elongating vowel sounds. This feature is known in Arabic as mud. This is what adds that beautiful melodic quality to the recitation, but, you guessed it, it follows some very specific rules.
So one of the most common types you'll see is mad muttasil. This is what happens when a long vowel and the letter hamza show up right next to each other inside the very same word. The rule here is simple. It's a mandatory stretch of 4 counts. And a count is just the time it takes to, say, open or close your finger. Nice and simple.
Just listen to the difference, right? It's not a sama'i, it's a sama'i. That stretch is literally built into the word itself. In every single one of these examples, that 4-count stretch is an absolutely required part of a correct and beautiful recitation.
Okay, so you're getting the letters down, but what's the secret sauce? What gives those professional recitations that beautiful, resonant quality? Well, it often comes down to these next 2 rules, which are all about bringing silent letters to life.
Qalqala is kind of like a subtle echo or a bounce. When one of these 5 letters has a sukoon on it, meaning it has no vowel, you don't just stop the sound dead. You let it vibrate, just a little, and that's what adds this distinct, amazing texture to the recitation.
Can you hear that? Listen for the Q in barq, the J in yaj'alun, and the B in absarahum. There's this tiny little bounce. It's not a hard stop like barq, it's more like barqa. That's the qalqala in action, giving the letter a little bit of life, even when it's silent.
Next up, we've got ikhfa, which literally means to hide. This rule is all about what to do with a silent N sound. Instead of pronouncing a hard, clear N, you sort of soften it, you conceal it, and you transition into the next letter with a light nasal sound.
So here's the key. You don't say in kuntum with a really sharp, clear N. Instead, the sound gets softened. It's almost like in kuntun, where your tongue is already getting ready for that K sound while you're still making that nasal N sound. It just creates a much smoother flow.
So, wow, we've covered a lot, haven't we? Everything from visual memory to these really specific pronunciation rules. So how do we put it all together? What's the practical path forward? What are the key things you can take away from this and start using right now?
This slide pretty much lays out a simple, actionable game plan. It all starts with that physical mushaf to anchor your memory. Then you can zero in on mastering individual rules, like the lisping letters and the qalqala. And of course, nothing, and I mean nothing, beats just listening to skilled reciters and trying to copy them.
Look, the journey to perfecting your recitation is made of small, consistent, intentional steps. You don't have to become a master of everything overnight. The absolute best way to start is to just choose one of these rules, just one single thing to focus on today. So which one is it going to be?